Yeah, welcome to tonight's webinar, Preparing Your Home for Winter. And this is with Renew and Andrew, who I'll introduce in just a moment. I hope that you and your families are all keeping safe and well in this kind of a strange time. My name is Beck Nichols and I work for City of Stonnington in the Sustainable Environment team, and I've organised tonight's webinar. I do want to start us off this evening by just acknowledging that whilst we're spread out right across Melbourne and Victoria and kind of even the world, we are meeting on the lands of the traditional owners in Australia. And so I do want to pay my respects to elders, both past, present and also emerging, and recognise the cultural heritage of this land. And I myself am located on Wurundjeri land, just near the Yarra River in Melbourne. So if you're not sure who your traditional owners are, where you are tonight, I definitely encourage you to do some research after this webinar. So yeah, as I said, a total of 174 people registered for tonight's webinar, which is really, really awesome. And tonight's webinar is actually part of a series of online events coming up in May and June. And they're all about helping you live more sustainably and also take climate action. And the series is actually a partnership between Stonnington Council and the cities of Yarra, Port Phillip and Glen. So the series has, I think, over 16 webinars on offer, exploring a huge wide range of topics, from growing food at home, growing a habitat garden, keeping chooks, cutting your energy bills, renewable energy, all the way to citizen science and nature play. So there's a huge kind of program on offer. And really this series is our response to the pandemic that we've kind of found ourselves in. And it's really aiming to help you learn new skills and knowledge to help you reduce costs, reduce emissions, use resources carefully and be more sustainable at home during this time. So I do want to preface tonight's workshop by just saying that Stonnington Council is really committed to sustainability, both through reducing our impact and emissions as an organisation, but also through supporting our community to reduce their impact as well. And at Stonnington, we're working across the whole organisation to reduce our impact. And a few ways we're doing this: installing solar on all council rooftops, switching our streetlights to LEDs, using recycled plastic in road surfaces. We've just launched our new food and garden waste service, which is keeping a huge amount of food waste out of landfill. Plus we run a whole range of free events and programs to help our community live more sustainably, such as this one tonight. And you can learn lots more about Stonnington's environmental commitment and programs by subscribing to our monthly newsletter if you haven't already. So I would now like to introduce Andrew Reddaway, our expert presenter from Renew Australia. And Renew is a not-for-profit organisation supporting sustainable homes and communities right across Australia. So Andrew is an energy analyst at Renew. He provides energy advice and sustainability advice at events like this one, in magazines and also on radio, including doing some talkback on the ABC. And I read he also holds a Bachelor of Engineering, so I think definitely the right expert for tonight's webinar. So that is all from me, and I'd love you to join me in welcoming Andrew to your screens and to your homes.
All right. Well, good evening, everyone, or selamat siang to our Indonesian participant or participant from Indonesia. A pretty broad geographic spread that we're covering tonight. Now I'll just try and share the screen to my presentation. All right, so who is Renew? So we're a not-for-profit organisation. We have branches of members around Australia. We're membership based, and we provide independent expert advice on sustainable solutions for the home. We've been around since 1980, and we're probably best known for our magazines, Renew and Sanctuary, but we have a whole range of other services that we offer. Now, so Australian climate zones. So not everywhere is cold at the moment, although if you're in the southern part of Victoria, as most of us are, then yeah, it's the weather is starting to get cold. Winter is coming, so that's really the reason for the presentation tonight, to help people save energy during winter. So if we look at Melbourne, where probably most of the attendees are, if you look at where energy is used in the house, so this is not just electricity, but looking across electricity and gas, you can see here on the pie chart that the big energy consumer for a typical home is heating at around 45%. Then we have hot water at 29%, and then the rest are smaller. So cooling. People often think about air conditioner as a major energy usage, and it's true that air conditioning on those heat wave days, when the temperature does get up to 45 degrees or something, on a day like that, you do use a lot of energy with your air conditioner running, assuming you have one and you're using it. But that's only for a handful of days a year that you get those really hot days. So for an average sort of typical house, heating through winter and spring and autumn is when you, day after day after day, you're using heating for many hours a day, which is why it adds up to such a large part of the pie chart. I will say that there's a lot of variability. So to give you an idea, with electricity consumption, the average Victorian home would use about 15 kilowatt hours of energy per day of electricity. But at Renew, we advise a lot of households, and we see a lot of data, and we see some households that use only around 5 kilowatt hours per day, and then we see others that use up to 60, 80 kilowatt hours per day on average. So there's an enormous spread. Some people have swimming pool pumps. Some people have whole house ducted reverse cycle air conditioning that they have on all the time on a thermostat. Some people have spas. Some people have multiple computer servers that are running all the time. So there really is a lot of variety out there. Just for comparison, here's a pie chart for a typical house in Brisbane. So the picture's changed here. There is a little bit of heating, but that's only 5% of the household's energy usage. Now the big ones are appliances, cooling, and hot water. So you might think, well, why does a household in Brisbane use more electricity on appliances than one in Melbourne? And probably the answer is, well, they don't use that much more, but it's more that the heating and the cooling have are a lot. Those portions of the energy consumption are a lot lower. So relatively, the appliances jump up. And yeah, hot water is also very variable. So if you think about a single person living at home, maybe they're quite frugal. They have short showers with an efficient shower head that doesn't use a lot of water per minute. Then they're going to use quite a small amount of hot water compared to, say, a family with multiple teenagers that are all playing sport and coming back and having multiple showers per day after they do sport and that sort of thing. So yeah, heating and cooling are the major users, and in the cooler parts of Australia, it's the heating. So why is that the case? Why do we need to spend so much energy to keep our homes warm in winter? Well, there's part of the reason is air is leaking in and out of our homes quite a lot. So homes in Australia, they've been referred to as glorified tents. So the amount of air leakage can be quite high. And in this slide here, we've just got an example of some of the places where air leaks in and out. So if you add up all these little gaps, then you might find that each gap might only be very thin, but when you add them all up, then it could be like equivalent to a 1 metre square hole in your wall. And obviously that's going to not be good for keeping your home warm. Well, yeah, warm in winter and cool in summer. So from a winter point of view, if you're heating up that air inside your home, and that's great, but if that hot air is just escaping and being replaced quickly by cold air, then you're wasting a lot of energy heating up air for nothing, really. Now, newer homes are quite different to the older homes. The picture on the top left is an example from a housing development at Cape Patterson called the Cape, and that's a development which is specifically set up for very energy efficient homes, and we're talking like 8-star on a star rating for homes. So you're probably familiar with star ratings for appliances. So if you buy a fridge or a washing machine, it'll have a sticker on it that tells you an Energy Star rating. So it might be like 2 stars, 5 stars, 8 stars, whatever. The same thing applies for if you're building a new home. There's a rating that indicates how much energy that home is going to use for heating and cooling, assuming standard sort of occupant behaviour in how they're running their heating and cooling appliances. So a home like the one on the top left could be, say, an 8-star home. The one on the bottom right there, the older weatherboard, that may be 1 or 2 star. So that implies that it's going to use many times more energy if you want the same level of comfort as what the tighter, better sealed, better insulated home up on the top left would. Oh yeah, just one other thing I'll note. That home would be oriented towards the north, so all of those big windows that you could see would be facing the north, so that in winter, when the sun's low in the sky on the north side, that winter sun will be going into the house and warming it up. But in summer, when the sun's higher up in the sky, the sunlight won't be hitting the windows. So that's called passive solar design. It's a good thing to achieve if you can. Obviously, if you've got an existing house, then that's one of the things that you can't change. Is you can't usually pick your whole house up and spin it around. Yeah, so these energy standards are the ones that I mentioned with the star rating, and they've improved over time. So if you build a house now in Australia, it's required to have a minimum star rating of 6. But you certainly can build a house that's more efficient than 6 stars. You can go all the way up to 10 stars, which is effectively you don't need to spend anything or barely anything on heating and cooling. All right, so what can we do about it? Now, this is a point where I might just pause and ask if Doug, the wizard behind the scenes, can put up a couple of polls for the participants to click on and answer where they sit. There are 2 polls I was hoping to do. Yep, that's one. Where are you at in your energy efficiency journey? And the other one was, what is your main motivator for improving energy efficiency in your home? I'm not sure if we can do 2 at once, but yeah, we'll see how we go. So there are some people who basically are only just sort of realizing some of the potentials with energy efficiency. And by the term energy efficiency, we mean when you're using electricity and gas, getting more out of it. So you're not wasting that electricity and gas. Maybe we'll just stick with this with poll number 1, and after a couple of slides, we'll move on to the next one. That might be better. Oh no, here we are. That's good. Sorry, that's the results of the first one. That was quick. All right, so we don't have any energy ninjas here yet, but that's fine. That's why you've come to this webinar. So we're seeing that most people have some knowledge, but still have a fair bit of improvement to do, which is great. All right, so what can I do about heating and cooling or thermal comfort? So if you can look at it 2 ways. You can either use less energy, or you can maybe use the same amount of energy, but be warmer in winter and cooler in summer. So that's better thermal comfort, and that actually can be more important than you think. There's some indication that in Australia there are a surprising number of people who are suffering health conditions as a result of being too cold in their homes in winter, or when a heat wave comes through in summer, actually getting heat stroke because their homes are not comfortable enough to be safe for them. So this is not just about comfort, it's also even about health and safety. All right, so achieving thermal comfort. All right, so a starting point is to think about how you use each room. How many people are in the house? What are they going to be doing? Do you need to heat the whole of your house 24 hours a day, 7 days a week? And can you zone rooms? So again, here individual behaviour can be quite different. Some people have a whole house ducted heating system and air conditioning system, and they just have it turn on all the time. So it's moderating the temperature whenever they're in the house, and that's possible, but it does result in a lot of energy consumption. Most people in Australia probably don't do that. They just turn on the heater when they need to, or the air conditioner for cooling. And that's if that's suitable for you, then that's probably the best way to save energy. So zoning, this is really simple, but close the doors. So if there's a part of the house that people are not using, then close the door to that part of the house and don't heat it or cool it. How do you use each space? And this is something that's probably changed. I think we've got a slide that comes to this, but with our current situation with the COVID virus, you're probably using your rooms a bit differently than you used to. So this is just an example floor plan of a house, and what's circled in red is the main living area. You've got the kitchen up the top and entertainment living room down the bottom, number 2. Now we've got the bedroom circled, bedroom and study. So the primary heating zone is that kitchen and living area, that open plan area, because that's where most of the people would be most of the time when they need heating. The secondary heating zone would be those bedrooms. So some people are quite happy with no heating in the bedrooms when they're sleeping at night. Just a warm doona is fine for some people. Other people find that they do need heat. So be aware of your own needs. Different people have different tolerances to cold. If you're studying, for example, and you're spending all day in your bedroom at a desk, then yeah, you probably are going to need some sort of heating through the day in that bedroom as a secondary heating zone. Then the bathroom is going to be a minimal heating zone. So that's you're normally not in a bathroom for very long. So most people can do without heating, or maybe just a small amount of heat from one of those radiant heat lamps up in the ceiling, something like that. Yeah, here we go. So maybe some rooms have changed their role. So if I flick back and forward between these two slides, we can see that bedroom 1 has gone from being a secondary heating zone to a primary heating zone. So the primary heating zones are the ones that you would maybe think about investing in a efficient heater. Whereas if it's a spare bedroom where you're only very rarely need heating, then maybe a heater that's not so efficient might be sufficient. Okay, so just before we go to the next slide, maybe I'll ask for that second poll, which was, what is your main motivator for improving your energy efficiency? So there's a few reasons why you might want to. Cost savings, so reduce your bills for electricity and gas. You might want to reduce emissions that result from the electricity and gas that you're consuming, that come from the gas fields and the centralised power stations. It might be for better comfort, or all of the above. Wow, that's a pretty significant result. So most people have multiple reasons for wanting to improve their energy efficiency. So it's mostly a combination of cost savings, but also helping the environment by reducing emissions. That's great. All right, so let's start looking at these spaces and thinking about how we might get them more energy efficient. Any of these? So gaps under doors, that's one thing to look for. Now, these ones here are wall vents. You won't see them on houses that were built recently, but they were a common feature for houses built, back in the 1930s, 40s, 50s. And the reason they were put in was because in those times people used to use kerosene lamps or some sort of oil or gas heater that didn't have a flue, didn't have a chimney going outside the room. So for safety reasons, when you're burning those sorts of gases and oils, then you need to have good ventilation so you don't have fumes building up and causing a safety issue. But these days, they're really not necessary anymore. Third picture is, so this is a window here, and this is the wall that's leading into it, or it could be a door. And there's a really obvious gap in between the window frame and the wall. So that means air is going to be leaking into the wall space, into the cavity inside the wall, and from there it's going to be finding its way out in between the weatherboards or the bricks, and you're going to have a pretty big draft from something like that. Most gaps are not that obvious, but even if it's just a small gap of a couple of millimeters, then that's over long lengths of distance, then that's enough to add up to large drafts. What are we trying to achieve? Do we want to have a perfectly sealed house? Do we want to live in a submarine? Obviously not. So we do need some amount of airflow to enable the air within the house to circulate, so it doesn't get too stale. So the air quality is important. We do need to have some exchange of air. If you're in an old house, then there's no chance really, even if you do your best job of sealing up all the drafts, there's no chance that you're going to get it so tight that you're going to suffer from air quality problems. It's something to be aware of, but not to worry too much if you're in an old house. If you're in a new house that was built to a really high air tightness standard, then it is something that has to be considered. So new houses that are built to a high standard, such as the Passive House, which is a German accreditation level, if you have a house built like that, then they need to have a specific ventilation system that's installed in the house to avoid that stale air building up too much. But even in a house like that, you do have windows that you can open. So if it's summer and you get a cool change coming through in the evening, which is quite common in Victoria, for example, the air temperature outside can drop, 10 or 20 degrees in just a short space of time, then yeah, great, throw open all your windows and allow that cool air to come through. So it is good to think about operating your windows and using them to help the air quality in your house. All right, a bit more on managing those drafts. So how do we seal up the gaps? So gaps under doors and windows, if we look on the bottom left here, this is installing a weather strip, a draft strip on the bottom of the door. This is a fairly simple type. It looks like a brush. And it's just being screwed in with a screw. So that's an easy do-it-yourself sort of job. Even renters should be able to do it, I would think. Top left is putting a weather strip on a window. So this is a casement window that's hinging from the left, and when it closes, the window is going to press up against the window frame. But if it's not joining very well, then you're going to have a leak and it'll be draft. So by applying this adhesive strip, it's that soft strip will be compressed when the window closes, and it'll form a really good seal, so you won't get that air coming in and out. Top right is a fairly easy fix for those wall vents that I mentioned that you really don't need. Not many people still using kerosene lanterns and things. And the bottom right is a good fix for gaps in floorboards. So there are some houses where if you get down on your knees and look through the cracks, you can actually see under the house, and that indicates a major air leakage source. So this is a strip of foam that's being pressed into that gap using a roller tool. So it's got a little roller in it, a bit like a pizza cutter, I guess, but it's not sharp. It's just pressing that strip in as you go along. Again, that's quite a simple job that anyone can do, really. The materials are pretty easy to find from hardware shops or online, and permission from a landlord, I don't know if you'd even need to ask for permission to do something like that. It's not. I can't see a landlord having a problem with renters doing small little things like that. Now, this colourful picture here is taken with a thermal imaging camera. So I don't know if anyone's seen the 1980s movie Predator, when the alien was looking around in infrared vision and seeing the humans that he wanted to try and attack. Well, yeah, it's the same sort of thing, but just not as violent. So the blue colour there indicates a cold surface, and the orangey yellow is a warmer temperature surface. So the draft under the door, that cold air coming in has cooled down that patch of floor. So look around for places where you might be able to borrow or rent one of these thermal imaging cameras. Some councils have them, or they might be able to point you in the direction of somewhere where you could use one for a day or so to have a look around your house and identify where you have the drafts. Another low-tech way of finding drafts is to hold something which is really thin and light, like a sewing thread or knitting wool, yarn, something like that. Or if you've got an old audio cassette that you don't need anymore with those magnetic strip tapes, if you can tear off a piece of that and hold it and walk around when you have a windy day, and hold it next to your windows and doors and other places like that, and if there's a draft, you can see it moving in the draft. Or even an incense stick, and you burn it, and the smoke, you see which way the smoke's moving. So there's a few simple tips you can do to try and track down where you're losing that warm air out of the house and have the cool air coming in. Okay, so insulation. So insulation is not so much about the draft, it's not really about air movement, but it's about heat that's soaking through a wall. So you think about if you hold a coffee cup, for example, the heat from that hot coffee is soaking through the ceramic cup into your hand, and the same thing happens with the house. Even if you seal it very well and the air can't get through, heat can still soak through a wall or a ceiling or a floor or a window. The picture here is showing the heat coming into the house because it's indicating summer, but it's the opposite in winter. You'll have heat soaking through those surfaces from inside the house to outside. So how you stop that is with insulation. I think we have a picture on the next one. So the ceiling is a big place to focus on for insulation because heat tends to rise up. So that's one of the first places where it's trying to escape from is through the ceiling. And the windows can also be a big one as well. Yeah, here we go. So the top left picture, the worker there is installing insulation bats. So it's a thick, soft, blankety type material. It's come as a roll, and he's unrolling that to fit it in between the timbers in the roof space. This can be a do-it-yourself project, but only if you're pretty agile and you are careful and you are confident with that sort of work. You don't want to step in between these beams, or you might put a foot through the plaster and someone in the room beneath you will see a foot coming out of the ceiling. And you also have to be really careful. It's not a very nice environment. This picture here, the roof space, it looks very clean. It's probably just a newly built house, but most roof spaces I've been in tend to be full of droppings from mice and lots of dust and dirt that's built up over the decades. So it's not great. And if you're up there in summer, then the temperature up in the roof space can get dangerously hot. So just be aware of those things. Bottom left, I quite like the intensity of this worker here. He's really focused on doing a good job in installing this piece of insulation here. So this is a different type. It's a type of foam, which again is very good at resisting the flow of heat moving through it. One of the tricks with this though is it's a rigid product. It doesn't have a lot of flexibility in how it can be installed. So it has to be a good fit in between those wall studs. If you have gaps in between the insulation and the stud, then it's not going to be very effective. So the statistics I've seen is if you're putting in high insulation that has a high value to it, it's resisting a fair bit of heat, then if you have gaps equating to 5% of the wall surface, then you're actually losing half of the value of that insulation. So attention to detail is really important when installing insulation, although you probably don't have to have the expression that this guy has on his face when you do it. So watch out for builders and subcontractors that are installing insulation and then immediately covering it up with plasterboard or cladding on the outside of the wall, because some of them do cut corners, and if you don't have a way to see that, then you might never know that your wall's not performing as well as it should be, or your ceiling. Now, the picture on the right is a double brick wall. So it's got 2 layers of brick wall with an air gap in between. The air gap does work to some extent as an insulating barrier, but it's not that effective because air circulates in that gap and transfers heat from one brick wall to the other. So what's being done here is contractors come in and first they've drilled a hole through this wall, probably about the size of a 10-cent piece or something, and then they've put this nozzle in, and they're squirting out a insulating material. It looks like this is tufts of little fiberglass, like the same sort of soft fiberglass that you get in insulation bats over on the left here, but it's just in a sort of small pieces that can be pumped in with pressure through this hose. So that's actually an effective way to really improve the insulation of a double brick wall. I've got some like that in a double brick wall in my own house here, and it has made a difference. Underfloor insulation. So this is these are polyester bats, so similar to the fiberglass bats that we saw on the previous slide, but just a different material. And what the technique has been here is, again, a big roll which has been rolled out and pressed up in between the floor joists, the timbers, and then stapled into the sides. When the professionals do that, they have a power stapler rather than a manual one that you have to squeeze. So, yep, that can be effective too. Now, curtains and pelmets. Where have you seen one of these recently? 10 points for anyone who says, behind you. Yeah, because I've got a curtain with a pelmet behind me here. If on the left here we have a not very effective insulation of a window. It's just got a curtain that's hanging on a rail here, and the problem is that the air that's next to the window in winter gets cooled down by the cool glass. So that cool air is denser and it drops down into the room, and when that drops down, it sucks in warm air, and you end up having a circulation of air behind the curtain. So you've got a little cooling device in your room in the middle of winter. So the way to stop that is to install a pelmet, and that stops the air from circulating, and that really helps the curtains perform a lot better. So curtains and pelmets are a bit of an old-fashioned solution, and some people won't like the style of them. So a more modern look is a honeycomb blind. So it's an internal blind that you pull down in front of the window, and the reason they're called honeycomb is the way the blind is constructed. So inside you can have multiple pleats. So it's trapping pockets of air inside the blind, and those can be really effective actually in trapping air and keeping heat from escaping out of your room and through the window. Okay, speaking of the windows themselves can have some insulation value as well. If you just have a single pane of glass, then it's got it's got a very, very low insulation value. So heat can pass through that pane of glass quite easily. Obviously, air isn't passing through the glass, but yeah, you know, if you have a hot drink in a drinking glass, then yeah, that heat passes through the glass into your hand very quickly. A way to improve that is to have double glazing, where you have two panes of glass with an air gap in between. For thermal purposes, to try and stop the heat flowing through, the ideal gap is around maybe 12 to 18 millimeters. Is something around that level. If the gap gets too big, then the air starts to circulate in between the two panes of glass, and that transfers the heat from one to the other. So, and if the gap's too small, then it doesn't do as much. So you have that sort of sweet spot of a reasonable gap. And on the right here, we have a triple pane, which is going a step further. In Australia, single glazing is still the most common. If in other countries like the UK, double glazing is the most common. And I've heard that if you ask for a builder to install single glazing, it'll actually be more expensive than the double glazing, because it's such an uncommon style of window. So we're a long way behind in Australia. If you wanted to change your windows, that's a very expensive proposition, because you're paying for the labour to take out the old windows and put the new ones in. So if you've got perfectly good existing windows, then you're unlikely to throw them away. One other point I'll make is the frames make a difference as well. So these two windows on the left look like aluminium frames. Aluminium's great for resisting the effects of the weather. So they last a long time, especially on the outside, compared to, say, timber. But aluminium conducts heat very well. So if you've got a frame that's all aluminium, then you can have heat passing from the cold outside part of the frame to the inside. So in winter, the inside frame will feel very cold when you touch it, and that's going to be a way to lose heat out of your house through that frame. There are aluminium frames which have a plastic section in the middle. They're called thermally broken aluminium, so that would be a better option. Or the one on the right here looks like it's a plastic window. UPVC is the type of plastic that they call it. So that's a better option than a plain aluminium window from the point of view of resisting heat transfer. Timber is also good at not transferring that heat through. Okay, so let's say you do have old windows that are just single glazed, single pane of glass in there. Then what can you do? Well, there are ways that you can add on a second sheet on the inside without replacing the whole window. So you can maybe just see it here. This section here is like a second little window frame that's been added on, and it's got a sheet which you can't see because it's clear, but it's probably a type of plastic sheet on the inside. So that can be quite effective as a way to improve the performance of your windows and stop that heat in winter from just passing through too easily. All right, so we're up to the point where we finally start talking about the appliances that you use for heating. But just before that, maybe I'll ask for the poll of what kind of heating appliances do you use in your house? So yeah, this is a multiple choice. You can, if you use multiple types of heating in your house, then you can click more than one. So when it talks about a split system reverse cycle air conditioner, that's just talking about, if I can move my screen, something like that up on the wall. So that's a an air conditioner which is split between the inside unit that I just showed you and an outside unit that's probably down at ground level somewhere. If it's a ducted air conditioner, then you'll have ducts probably either in the ceiling or in the floor, and coming from a centralised air conditioner. Yep, it doesn't surprise me. The predominant type is ducted gas central heating. In the context of Australia, Melbourne is actually a bit of an outlier in using so much ducted gas central heating. If you go to Sydney, Adelaide, Hobart, most other cities, you won't find so much ducted gas. It's a bit of a Melbourne thing, and it goes back to the days of the 1970s and 80s when oil was discovered in Bass Strait, and as a byproduct of pumping out the oil out of the oil wells, gas was coming out at the same time, just by accident, basically. And initially there was nowhere to use that gas, and so it was just being burned, flared off to the atmosphere. So pretty quickly they thought, well, we can use that gas, and built pipes to put it around the state, which is why gas gets used a lot more in Victoria than other states. Even though now Bass Strait's running out, so it may be a bit of a liability now. Split system reverse cycle air cons are used a fair bit. Non-air conditioner electrical heating is used a fair bit as well. That's what I would expect. All right, let's move on. Oh, 11% other. It'll be interesting to hear what that is. So if you could maybe put it as in the Q&A or the comment, some examples of other types of heating that people are using that weren't on that list. All right, so heating appliances. There are many different types. So this is an electric radiator style heater. Another one. This one's called an oil column heater. So it's not burning oil. It's just electric, but contained within these fins is oil that just heats up and helps transfer that heat around. This is a wood heater. The brand name that often gets used is Conara, even though, well, that was a common brand. So this is a duct in the floor, commonly used for ducted gas central heating. It can also be used for electric reverse cycle air conditioner central heating. And this is the split system that I mentioned, so the indoor unit and the outdoor unit. So it's a reverse cycle air conditioner. This is a gas wall unit, so it's an individual gas heater. It's not going through ducts through the house. And this is an electric panel heater. There's a few different types of these. Hot water bottle, oldie but a goodie. So just put your hot water in and put it in your bed usually. Warm up your bed before you get in. You do have to be careful with safety. You don't want hot water splitting and hurting anybody. This is a heater that you can, I think it's one designed to heat up your feet. So if you're working at a desk all day and you find that your feet get cold, then you can have one of those underneath your feet. Or it might be the style that you sit on. So a couple of different options. And this is a fancy wrist heater, personal heating devices. All right, so whole of house. This is I've mentioned this already. So you have a heating unit which then goes through ducts out to individual rooms. Room heaters. So that these electric ones, or the split system reverse cycle air conditioner, or the gas wall unit as well would be considered a room heater. And then the personal heaters. So yeah, different types. One thing I'll just say about this this ducted type solution, the ducts reduce the efficiency of the heat quite a lot, because for a start, you need to have a fairly powerful fan that's going to be blowing that air through the ducts. And in a ducted gas heater, the electrical consumption is significant, and a lot of people don't realise that. Another thing is that you're blowing air into each room. The air then is supposed to return to a air return vent somewhere to go back to the central unit. Often people have their doors closed, so it's quite hard for that air to get back, and you end up forcing hot air into the room, increasing the pressure, which then tends to go out any gaps you have in the windows, any drafts. So having a system like this is going to increase the amount of air leakage that you have through any drafts in your house. So yeah, room heating is a more efficient option than the ducted in general. All right, so which are the most efficient? I might have jumped ahead of myself a little bit there, but so reverse cycle air conditioning is now the most efficient way that you can heat your house. People in Victoria are often surprised by this. Traditionally, Victorians have seen air conditioners as a cooling device only, but it's no surprise to people in Tasmania or New Zealand, where these air conditioners, they don't even call them air conditioners usually, but they call them heat pumps, which is true. The machine in there is a heat pump. And in Tassie and New Zealand, they use them more for heating than for cooling. And in Victoria, you can also use it as a primary heating device to heat up a room. And it is now the most efficient option because the technology has improved to the extent that if you get a good, efficient model of split system air conditioner, if you use it for heating, say, then if it uses 1 unit of electrical energy that it's consuming from your power supply, it can put out 5 units of heat energy into the house. So you might be saying that that's not possible. How can you turn 1 unit of energy into 5 units of energy? Well, the answer is that it's not just converting it. It's actually extracting heat from the air outside and then moving that heat inside. So it can do that even if the temperature of the air outside is freezing. It's still able to take some heat out of that freezing air and then return that air outside at an even lower temperature. So that's how they work. They're moving the heat rather than just converting the electricity into heat. So if we compare that to gas, gas can't do this. It can't move heat. It's just burning the gas, and when you're burning it, you're not getting 100% efficiency because the gas heaters have a flue where the burnt exhaust has to go out. So along with that goes some of the heat. So for a wall unit, you could be looking at 80% efficiency. For a ducted gas system, maybe 60% efficiency. So once you combine that less than 1%, less than 100% for the gas, and say 500% for a good split system air conditioner, then yeah, it becomes quite a big difference. So electricity is now a more cost-effective way to heat than gas. Even though 1 unit of electricity costs more than 1 unit of gas energy, you can do a lot more with the electricity. So it ends up putting heat into your house more cheaply than what gas does. So if you're going to do the whole house with an air conditioner, you can do a ducted solution like what we had on the previous page. 1 unit heating multiple rooms through ducts, or you can have multiple split systems like this, or there are multi-splits where you have 1 outdoor unit connected by pipes to multiple indoor units, and that's often a pretty good way to do it. Okay, so this is a chart from a big project that we ran for a client year or two ago, and looking at what sort of savings you'd get if you heated a house with a reverse cycle air conditioner compared to gas. So it does depend on where you are, because some locations are colder and they need to use more heat, and also the prices of electricity and gas vary by location. So yeah, in all of these southern Australian locations, for the scenario that we looked at, then yes, you would save a fair bit of money each year if you heated that house with electricity rather than gas. So a lot of people already have an air conditioner in the living room, for example, and so when winter's coming up, you could try it out. Just check when you got your last gas bill, in your last electricity bill, and say, well, okay, for the next bill cycle, let's try using the air conditioner more than the gas when we only need to heat that section of the house where the aircon is. So try it out. Try using the aircon rather than the gas for heating, and see what it does to your bills just for a few months. Okay, so air conditioners are an example of an electric heater. So they're using electricity to do their work. The other types of electric heaters, there's the panel heaters. Some of these are more radiative heat, so they're heating without air movement, just by radiating heat out of them, in front of them. Some are more convection, where they actually do have heat sort of blowing out. And with these, you do not get that energy efficiency bonus that you do with the reverse cycle air conditioner. So with these, 1 unit of electricity energy just gives you 1 unit of heat energy. So you're probably using, say, 5 times as much electricity to run one of these for the same amount of heat as you would for a good split system air conditioner. So if it's only occasional, then that's fine. But if you're going to be using it every day for multiple hours, then that's going to add up to a pretty expensive bill. And yeah, a fair bit of carbon dioxide emissions from the electricity source. And it's the same story with the other types of electrical heating, radiators, fan units, oil column heaters. They're all just a one-for-one. So yeah, use a lot more electricity than a split system reverse cycle aircon. Just before we go on to gas, there are a couple of links that are going to be included probably in a follow-up email about where you can find information about comparing different models of air conditioner, try and find the most efficient one. But the short answer is have a look at the Energy Star rating. So there are a couple of models out there that are rated at 7 stars. But yeah, anything more than 5 stars is what I would be looking at. And there's also a link that we'll try and send you with a calculator to help you work out what sort of size split system air conditioner you want for a particular room. All right, gas. So a gas wall heater, yeah, again, no efficiency gain, and as I said, you're looking at probably 85% efficient. And then ducted gas heating. So yeah, this is a typical sort of system. You've got an outdoor unit where it burns the gas, and it also has a powerful fan in it, run by electricity to push that hot air through all the ducts. And this is an example of the ducts under the floor there. And one of the issues with ducts that I didn't mention is over time, they tend to deteriorate. This tape wears out and starts to open up, and you get leaks and gaps. If you've had tradespeople or or animals under the house running around, they might have brushed up against it, and so we've seen lots of cases where you have big gaps and leaks in the ducts themselves. So you have hot air leaking out under the house, and your unit is trying to heat up the whole neighbourhood rather than just your house, which is not what you want. Yeah, and the efficiency of the burner varies as well. And that is my presentation.
Yeah, awesome. Thanks so much, Andrew. Yeah, so a lot in there. Yeah, lots of good tips, and I'm sure people maybe have a bit more of an idea of their next move, where they can start in getting their home working a bit more efficiently and sustainably. We do have a bit of time now for questions, so do hang around, and I've already got a few questions in the Q&A. I do just want to start by saying, if you don't get your questions answered tonight, and you do want some maybe more personal advice for your home, there's a couple of different options. So Stonnington Council partners with the Australian Energy Foundation, who are a not-for-profit organisation, and they have a bunch of energy experts who you can call and have a conversation with at any time, and they can give advice on everything from draft proofing to solar to different appliances. So please get in touch with them. And I know that Renew also has an energy advice service for members, so I might let Andrew tell you guys a little bit more about that. But I did want to just get the ball rolling myself with a question, just because I've seen that solar sales have gone up just in the last couple of months. You know, there's been a lot of industries that are suffering, but solar is definitely not one of them, and there's been big kind of increases. So I was just going to ask Andrew, would you say it's a good time at the moment to install solar, and how would that work coming into winter?
Yeah, sure. Just to pick up on the previous topic, yeah. So our advice services, if you're a member of Renew, then a household member, then you get access to a advice service where you can call us up occasionally and get a quick phone chat for quick advice. And for members or non-members, we also have a paid advice service where you get time with an hour of time with an expert such as myself to do some more detailed advice. We can look at house plans, and we can look at quotes from solar installers, that sort of thing. And we'll also be on the lookout for Speed Date, a sustainability expert event. So we hold some of those sometimes, which are free. So on the solar, yeah, it is a good time to get solar electricity panels installed. Yeah, the price of solar panels, the cost of them has reduced dramatically over the last 10 years or so. And they, for a typical home, they are very economic. And you're looking at okay, so say a typical size that most of the solar companies are looking to install would be maybe between 15 and 18 panels. So maybe between 5 and 6 kilowatts of rated power. You're looking at maybe $6,000 or $7,000 to put in a system like that, and you could save $1,000 a year off your electricity bill. Now, these are just rough, typical numbers. It's going to vary depending on a lot of factors, but that's the basic equation. So you're looking at a payback time of maybe 7-8 years, maybe less. And the Victorian government also has a rebate on at the moment. $1,800 or so. So if you qualify for that, it depends on your income and a few things like that, then that takes it from, a really good deal to a ridiculously good deal. So yeah, I would definitely consider looking at solar. And so just as long as you've got a sunny roof and you're planning on staying in your house for some years.
Yeah, awesome. Thank you. And yeah, if anyone is interested in solar, you can chat to the Australian Energy Foundation about your home, and they can, help you work out if it's a good fit for you. Likewise with Renew and Andrew and his colleagues. So we'll move into some questions. So I just wanted to start with one from Vicky about insulation. What are the safest and most environmentally friendly options?
Safest and most environmentally friendly options for insulation. Well, they're all safe. I don't think safety is really an issue. And environmentally friendly, well, they're all going to have a good environmental benefit by reducing the amount of energy that you need to use up. You could look at what the insulation is made of and the environmental impact of that. So the most common ones are fiberglass, glass fiber. That's, it's a manufactured product. It's everything has a bit of a footprint, but yeah, the I would say it's a very good use for a manufactured product to save energy. So the net environmental benefit is going to be very high. And if you go for glass fiber or polyester, so that's a oil-based petrochemical product used in clothes and things. You can get natural insulation products. You can find sheep's wool insulation, but that tends to be very expensive.
Cool. So one from Kat just right at the start, just about the Energy Star ratings, and can you change the rating of a house once it's been built?
Well, usually the energy rating is only done when the house is built in the first place, or if you have a really major renovation done. But yes, you can, if you went and installed lots of insulation, for example, then if you got an energy rating done again, then it would come back with a better value. That's right. It would have more stars on the certificate. Yeah.
One from Ruth, is a gas ducted, if a gas ducted system breaks, is it better to fix it or swap it with a reverse cycle aircon?
Well, it depends on your own situation, but if your gas ducted system breaks, then that would definitely be a good time to evaluate your options. If you went, the option of just replacing it with another gas ducted system, that's probably going to be a bit cheaper upfront. Like you're not going to be out of pocket as much. But then if you're going to be staying in your house for several years, then your higher bills are going to add up over time. So you have to, I would get a quote on both options and get a good air conditioner installer to say, well, okay, if you wanted to install a few split system air conditioners, it'll cost you this much, and get a quote for just replacing the gas burner and see what that is. But yeah, you need to weigh up the energy savings, which could be several $100s or $1,000 per year, depending on your situation.
Andrew, one from Phillip, would an old aircon unit still be more efficient than an old ducted heating system? So old aircon versus old heating system.
If it's one of those really old style air conditioners where you have like a square hole in the wall or a square hole in the window and you have this square box sitting in there, just a single unit, then that's probably not efficient enough to really be better. But if it's a fairly modern, if it's within the last 10 years or so, I guess, installed split system air conditioner, then I would think that would be efficient enough to be worthwhile to use instead of gas. Yeah.
Yeah. So we've got one from Yvonne about helping with other councils having services similar to Stonnington about helping for winter preparation. And I just thought it would be a good time to mention that another workshop or online webinar kind of element of this series is in the first week of June, the City of Port Phillip have a whole bunch of draft proofing workshops. So I think they're at lunchtime every day, and each day they're going to take you through a different draft proofing activity. So yeah, it's a bit of a DIY session and seeing how it's done. And you can have your questions answered there as well. So that's part of the series of events we're offering, and you'll get a link to the series after this event. I'll send that through. A few more coming in. Faye's asked about hydronic systems. Are they any good?
Right, yeah, so that's where we're talking about hydronic panels in the house. So they're like radiator panels up against the wall that have hot water flowing through the panel, which is radiating heat out into the room. And there's also underfloor hydronic where the pipes of water are going inside the concrete slab, for example, and then that's heating up the floor itself. It's a lot more common in Europe than what it is here, and in Australia it's seen and marketed as a bit of a luxury premium style of heating, and it can be very expensive to install. So that's one aspect of it. There's quite a lot of plumbing and labour involved in installing it. It can also be quite expensive to run, especially if it's built into the slab. Then the heat's going into the slab, and then it's from there it's going in all directions. so yes, you've got heat coming up into your house, but you've also got heat going out the edges of the slab, maybe out into the air, and you have heat soaking down into the soil as well and being lost to you. So depending on how it's designed, then it can be okay on an efficiency basis, but a lot of the time, yeah, they can use a lot of energy and weight and have very high bills. Most of them, the water that goes through the pipes gets heated in a gas by a gas burner, a gas boiler. So that's what most of the hydronic installers do, and what they'll try and recommend for you, because it's what they're familiar with. It is possible to get a system where the water is heated up by a heat pump, so electrical system, but has that efficiency bonus that I mentioned. So that's a more efficient way of doing it, and it'll be cheaper to run than gas, but that will be an expensive unit as well, and it's hard to find installers that do that. So hydronic, yes, it's possible, but it's in Australia it's a bit of a premium option, and you'd want to really do your homework. Yeah.
Good advice there. Emily is asked about wood fires and the efficiency of them, particularly in comparison with aircon split systems.
Okay, yep. So wood fire, then when you're talking about efficiency, like energy efficiency, it's how much of the energy inside the wood gets converted into heat delivered into your house. And that's going to depend on a range of factors, like what type of wood is it? How dry is the wood? Has it been kept somewhere for a summer or two to really dry out all the way through, or is it relatively green wood, which is not so good to burn? And also the design of the wood heater itself. So the more modern wood heaters have like an extra burning chamber that the gases pass through to make sure that the gases get burned fully. So you're getting the most heat out of it, and it's also minimizing the amount of nasty stuff that goes out the chimney. So I think the efficiencies can get reasonably high, up to 80 or 90% with a wood heater. So they can be pretty good at extracting as much energy out of the timber as possible. But the other questions about wood is, well, where is the wood coming from? So is it sort of sustainably sourced wood? If it's come from a farm that the farmer is going to be replanting those trees, then yeah, that's actually sustainable. It's it's effectively the timber was using energy from the sun, so it's effectively stored sunlight, I guess, that energy. So yeah, the source of the timber is one question, and the other one is the smoke that's going up the chimney. Is that going to cause a problem for your neighbours? So our local air quality, and that has been a problem specifically in some towns, like I think Launceston and some towns in the mainland as well have like a weather patterns where the smoke settles in the town and gets quite nasty for the residents. So that's another thing to be aware of as well.
Yeah, I think we all kind of experienced the poor air quality earlier this year, so you can definitely understand what you're talking about. Julia had a question. I was actually going to go with, maybe it disappeared. What about, Carissa had a question around split systems and whether it's a good option if the space is really big. So they hadn't been using theirs, assuming it wouldn't heat the space.
Well, it's a small split system air conditioner can be surprisingly effective, just as long as the space that you've got is well sealed and well insulated. If it's drafty, then yeah, you're heating up this air, and then the hot air is just escaping out of the house. So that's not what you want. If it's well sealed, then yes, it can be effective. But if it's a large drafty space and the air's just escaping, then yeah, you might be better off trying for some sort of radiant heater where rather than trying to heat the air, you're just getting that radiant heat that's going onto the people directly and warming them that way.
Yeah. I was just looking for this question from Tara, which I can see Doug's answered. She was just asking about cost-effective steps that renters can take. And Doug shared a link, which I will include in the email that I'll send out tonight. So yeah, if you're a renter, look out for that link coming in your email. So Julia, talking about building a new home, could you recommend a sustainable, efficient heating system that's affordable? So yeah, maybe talking a bit about affordability.
Yeah, sure. So I would say that the starting point would be looking at split system reverse cycle air conditioners. So there are some that are quite affordable. So out of those two, I mentioned there were 2 units that were 7-star rating. One of those it's a reasonably small unit, like 2.5 kilowatts of heating capacity. And one of those costs about $1,000, excluding installation. So that's relatively cheap to install, and not as cheap as a little fan heater or something, but it's you're going to only use about 1/5 as much electricity to provide the same heat. And so it's cheap to run, and the other benefit is in the one appliance you're getting heating and cooling, and cooling is probably going to become more important as we experience more heat waves into the future. So I'd look at those first and then compare other heating options against that.
Cool. There are a couple of questions about insulation. Do you know of any rebates on for ceiling insulation, Andrew?
Not aware of any at the moment. No.
Okay, neither am I, but I might check in that, and if I can find anything, I'll share it.
Just on rebates though, I mentioned the rebate for the solar electric panels. There's also a rebate for solar hot water up to $1,000, which can apply to the solar thermal systems as well as heat pump hot water systems, which we reckon are probably a better default option for the typical suburban home these days. And there's also a rebate for batteries if you're in one of the postcodes that they're targeting. But as a general proposition, we think batteries are not really for the mass market yet. They're still more for early adopters because they're generally not very economical given the high cost of the batteries, even with the rebate.
Yeah, yeah, and I don't. That Stonnington's not one of the postcodes where the rebate is available.
They've opened it up recently, but yeah, I haven't checked it. Yeah,
I think I've checked the most recent list, and Stonnington isn't on it. But yeah, by all means, jump on and check yourself. Stacey's asked about the amount of heat loss through ducted heating vents when the system's not in use.
Ah, yes, that's thanks for reminding me about that. So let's say you have a ducted system where the ducts are in the ceiling. So what you've done there is in order to install that duct, the installers had to cut a hole through the ceiling and a hole through the insulation, and the duct goes through. And yes, the duct has a bit of insulation, but it's pretty thin. So you've effectively compromised your ceiling insulation there, and you've also provided a path for air leakage to escape. So that's another downside of ducts. And yeah, the air leakage and the heat soaking through the insulation can be pretty significant. There are products you can get to close off those ducts, those openings when they're not being used. So that would be worth looking into.
One from Rebecca, just about the draft proofing, the foam for sealing drafts from floorboards. Whereabouts can you buy that? I'm assuming Bunnings would be a good option. Also, which ceiling insulation do you recommend and why?
Well, yeah, the sort of default product, the most common product would be fiberglass insulation bats. You'd be looking for a total insulation, like a reasonably thick, like 200 millimeters, 300 millimeters. The insulation bats are rated by R value, so it's like the resistance value to heat passing through it. And for ceilings, you'd be probably aiming for a value of R5. If you've got existing bats that are quite thin, which is common in older houses, then you can top that up with extra bats on top. So that's probably the way to go. The actual type, some fiberglass bats are not very pleasant to work with because they're really itchy. Like after you've been touching them, your skin gets itchy. There are other types that are not as itchy, and one that I've used is a brand called Earth Wool, which is not very itchy at all. So that might be one to look at. It is fiberglass. It's not from sheep's wool, despite the name.
Cool. And just going to ask, just this is going to be our last question before I just close up the webinar, but we do have a couple more questions here, and I think we're willing to stay online for just another 5 or 10 minutes to get these questions answered.
Sure.
So we'll just get this one from Yvonne, just about the lifespan of insulation, and is it something that you should reconsider doing after however many years?
Yeah, with insulation, if we're talking insulation bats, like the fluffy, soft stuff that goes up in the ceiling, that can degrade over time. So sometimes it can sort of collapse under its own weight, or if you've had rats or possums running around, then that can start to degrade it over time. It's probably going to be decades, I would think, before you get any significant loss of performance. So yeah, I'd just check it very occasionally, I guess, and see how it's going. If it's still sort of soft and fluffy like a nice blanket, then it's fine.
All right, well, I might just wrap us up for tonight. I do, just want to thank Andrew for tonight's webinar. Lots in there, and I hope everyone's kind of got a good idea of what they could maybe get started with in their home. And that's really what I want to ask right now. So, it's a free webinar, but we do really want you to get something out of this. And I'd just like you to take a moment to just reflect on the session and just come up with one next step or one action that you're willing to take. And I want it to be in the next week. And I just want you to take a minute right after this webinar to just note it down, or tell the person you're sitting next to, or write it in your phone. It could be looking at your house, your floor plan, and thinking about what zones you want to be heating, and having a conversation with those that you live with. It could be having a search for drafts in your home if you don't know exactly where they're coming from. Maybe you just want to take that step of draft proofing your doors and your windows, and maybe you want to tune into the City of Phillip event for that. Installing pelmets, I hadn't actually heard of that before, but that seems like a really good solution if I'm losing a lot of heat through windows. Maybe it's trialing your reverse cycle air conditioner. So it could be a range of actions, but really just keen for everyone to take one step. Hopefully get their home a little bit more cozy for winter. So a reminder that this webinar was part of a series, and we've got a whole range of events coming up in the next couple of weeks. So my next webinar is on Saturday, and it's a gardening focused webinar about growing food at home with Kat Lavers, who's an awesome permacultural gardener. That's going to be a really good workshop if you want to learn more about growing food at home. There's a buying renewable energy and saving energy at home workshop. So if you're thinking about renewables, Yarra have a workshop coming up. There's also citizen science for kids. So if you've got kids at home that need some outdoor activities, that one would be a good one. And just the last point I do want to raise, and this one's kind of for Stonnington residents tuning in. Stonnington Council, you may or may not know, in February declared a climate emergency, recognising that the climate emergency that we're currently in really requires an immediate and urgent response from Council, which is really, really great news and exciting for Stonnington. We're in the process of seeking some input from our community on this. And so we're calling at the moment we're seeking input online. So I'm going to send a link in this email to you that will have a link to the online ideas board that we're using. So if you wanted to contribute to that, it's a really good way of sharing what you think a climate ready Stonnington could look like. So I want to say a huge thank you to Andrew from Renew, and also to Doug behind the scenes, who's been working away, making it a smooth webinar experience for you all. Just thank you all for coming tonight, and hope you've got something out of it. I wish you the best of luck with your energy efficiency projects, and I hope to see you at one of our upcoming environmental events as part of this series. So thanks to anyone who has to leave now. And Andrew, if you're all right, we might just whip through a few more of these questions.
Sure.
Still got about 40 on the line, so that's pretty good. All right, so what about insulation bats in a flat roof?
Yeah.
Is that a huge pull the roof up job?
It probably is. So we're talking about a roof where you got the ceiling plasterboard like this, and then the tin roof or something like this. So you do have a space in between, but you don't have any access to it unless you pull the tin roof sheets up. So it's certainly possible, but it's not going to be that cheap to get a roofing contractor to pull the sheets off. Yeah,
Sounds like a huge task. Another one about retrofitting concertina foil bats. in ceilings on top of fiberglass bats, or does it make these ineffective quite fast?
Well, yeah, okay. So foil bats, it's relying on the reflective surface on the top and the bottom, but they also, I think, have some reflective air pockets in between. So if it's got the air pockets in between, then that might work. But I think most people would just use a normal normal insulation bat like fiberglass or polyester. So I'd probably lean more to that solution rather than the concertina foil. The other thing with the foil is you do have to be quite careful about any electrical cables, and that you're not damaging a cable and then electrifying the foil. So, yep, another safety issue there.
Yeah. One from Vicky. What's best to do first, solar or insulation?
Oh, that's a good question. The old advice used to be weatherize before you solarize. At the moment, with if you're in Victoria and you qualify for the rebate, I'd be tempted to do the solar first, because it's just so cost effective, and these rebates might not be around forever. I think maybe draft proofing is really cost effective and easy. So maybe that first, and then solar, and then insulation perhaps.
Yeah. What gas ducts are better, floor or ceiling? Possibly say.
If it's for gas, then that's for heating. So the floor would probably be a bit better for heating because the heat tends to rise. So yeah, you'll get a bit of a better distribution of heat within the room. If you have ceiling fans, by the way, it's not so much of an issue, because the ceiling fans normally have a switch on them for summer or winter, and if you put it on the winter setting, then you can have that on in winter, and it'll distribute your warm air around the room pretty thoroughly.
Yeah, my parents have one in their home in Tasmania, and it's super effective.
Yeah.
Carissa, her mum puts a large book over closed ducts. Do you reckon that actually helps?
It'll help a bit. The question will be how well it sits on the openings. Sometimes the ducts have little like ridges on them, so even though the book's sitting on top, the air can still escape around the sides. So it's not going to be fantastic in that case. Yeah. What you might be able to do is pull the duct vent out and actually put something inside the hole underneath. So see how you go.
And is it better to seal those off at the source rather than, at where the room is?
I'd probably seal it at the room, I think, because then that's helping get a more complete draft seal.
So Michael had a question about old electric off-peak hot water service.
Yep.
Which needs replacing. Should I stick with electric hot water? Or are there instant gas hot water heaters more efficient? And how does this compare with solar hot water?
Yeah, right. So hot water is a bit of a different topic. If you're a household that uses a reasonable amount of hot water, like you're having multiple showers per day, then in Melbourne, I'd say a good starting point would be a heat pump hot water system. So they're more expensive than a plain electric one, but they use probably only a quarter as much electricity. So I'd have a look for a good brand heat pump hot water system, and then compare that with electric perhaps. And instantaneous gas works fine, but and if you're only having one short shower per day, for example, then instantaneous gas has some advantages. But yeah, it depends on your situation.
And we've had a question about solar and different types that would best suit a townhouse. So there's a shared roof with 11 units.
Right. Now, if you've got a shared roof and you're looking to put on one big solar system and then share out the electricity from that solar system amongst multiple units, then there is one system I'm aware of that can do that. It's a startup company called Allume Energy, Allume. So maybe look them up. If you're not sharing one solar system amongst all the units, if you're just installing a small system on your section of the roof for your townhouse, then it's simpler. It's just like a normal solar system, basically. Yeah, hard to get more specific than that.
Yeah, cool. Australian Energy Foundation, I know, have worked with a few different apartment buildings. So if you do want to give them a call, they could be a good place to start, particularly with that Allume SolShare technology. And Mel was asked about the secondary window.
Yeah, there's a few places you can find them. I'm hesitant to sort of mention specific brand names there, but do some searching on the internet. Secondary glazing is probably the term to look for, or have a look on the Renew website. We've got articles on them in our magazines that you can probably find.
Cool, and that has taken us to the end of our questions, and it's 8:10, so I think we're just about on time. So I think we'll leave it there. So yeah, once again, thanks Andrew, thanks Doug. I hope those who are still listening have a good evening and hope to see you at an event soon.
Yeah, thank you, Beth.
Thanks everyone.